And we are live.
Are we sure?
Yeah, no, it says we are live, therefore it must be true. Everyone, I have no idea. We've got all sorts of things that we wanted to talk about, so we're going to bring them.
We might actually have a
one
stream
by
that's
one.
interesting.
Wait, we're going to try to. We were talking about the once again demonetization problems YouTube has. So this is something we could talk about. Breaking Bad, Marcus Bad, I forgot his name, never mind, was thinking about maybe we could talk about the increase in fake hate crime. And we just a moment ago thought up, well, it might be nice to talk about how California could become 2 states. And, all of them are great topics. So we're going to start with the YouTube demonetization phase we're going through once again. For the people of you who haven't heard it yet, YouTube has decided to not monetize people whose channel are smaller than a certain amount of views per month. And you know, the one thing that I found most interesting about this, they actually told us. No one picked up on that, but this is the first time YouTube is doing something and they're actually sending us messages about this. Did you guys not notice this?
I haven't received anything yet.
Well, we all got a mail.
I heard about it. I don't know. I haven't really got an email from them yet. But is it views or hours? I thought it was 4,000 hours.
Yeah, 4,000 hours, 4,000 views. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, 4,000 hours. And the interesting one with that is, I don't quite. We should look it up, but I don't quite understand. Is it 4,000 hours altogether? I know it's 1,000 subs, but you know you reach that number and then you're in the number. But for the 4,000 hours, I think that's a moving window. So they always
in 1 year.
In 1 year. So do they reassess it after 1 year, or is it like a moving window of 1 year?
Yes. They reassess it if you are eligible and all that shit. Yeah.
Because, you know, if it's 4,000 hours and then that's fine, that would be fine. But if it's 4,000 hours and you have to constantly have 4,000 hours over a space of time, then obviously it puts pressure on that you have to be productive, you know.
So hold on, wait. Let me see if I got this together. You're saying that YouTube is now requiring that you have 4,000 hours worth of viewers or 4,000 hours worth of content over the year period?
No, 4,000 hours
We're changing the eligibility requirement for monetizations to 4,000 hours of watch time within the last 12 months and 1,000 subscribers.
So you need to have 1,000 subscribers and have people watching at least 4,000 hours worth of content for you to make jack squat off of YouTube.
Exactly.
That's basically it.
In a month. So it's not a year. So I mean that's pretty.
No. This is. I mean, you have to have 4,000 of watch time in the last 12 months, and you have to have 1,000 subscribers. So it's not that you have to have 4,000 hours of watch time every month.
So if you have to have 4,000 hours of watch time every month, I think there are TV stations that can't do that.
Of course.
Oh yes, definitely.
Really?
Public access.
But the thing is, I mean, watch time isn't based on how much videos you put out. Watch time is based on how many times your video is being watched. I mean, if you make one video of 10 minutes and 100,000 people all watch it till the end, there you have it.
Yeah, but you need 100,000 people to watch the video.
Well, but the one thing I found, what I found funny is because, it's harder for small channels to make money. I'm a small channel. I don't even monetize my stuff anymore because everything I make will be demonetized anyway.
It's pointless, exactly. You get
and they're not going to
Cullen. I mean, he regularly brings up content. He's got decent subscribers, you know, in the 5 digits, and he gets a cent per video.
Yep,
it's ridiculous.
You know, YouTube demonetization issues aside, this actually doesn't sound like that actually doesn't sound like that bad of a change.
Yeah, not to me either.
I mean, this might just be me, but I think what was it? Review Tech USA put it best. If this is going to change your opinion of pursuing a career on YouTube, then you weren't that dedicated to begin with. I mean, it's a full-time job. You should be required to put out content and at least have people who watch it.
Yeah, if you were getting less than 4,000 viewers or 4,000 hours of viewing time, you weren't making anything anyway.
Yeah, it's like Modwain said, 100,000 people need to watch your video all the way to the end and only make a 10-minute video. I mean, let's look at the people who are actually succeeding on YouTube, like, I don't know, Markiplier or Captain Sparkles or PewDiePie or Bearing or Sargon, or they all pull in hundreds of thousands of views on videos that usually exceed more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, but they also get a lot of videos demonetized.
But
that's a separate issue. I am literally just discussing the factor to get monetization considerment. We can discuss all day long whether demonetizing these videos is right or not, and that's an entirely separate issue. But the issue at hand is whether these guidelines are, imposing to small content creators. And
these new rules will also impact on YouTube ultimately.
Hey, Mark,
positively or negatively, though, because what are you going to get?
Negatively.
How so?
If a video is demonetized, YouTube doesn't also get any money.
And therein lies the kicker.
We're not discussing the demonetization issue. We are discussing
no. If your video is not monetized, YouTube does not make money on the video.
Which means that YouTube is fucking stupid because they're setting ridiculous hurdles for monetization.
Yes, and that's the main problem. And having 4,000 hours of views for a video that isn't monetized anyway. I mean, there are huge YouTubers.
Not for the video, for your channel. It's not for your video. It's for a channel. Your channel has to have 4,000 hours of views.
It's just funny. Well, guys, while you were, I wanted to see, because I had some viral kind of songs, and I thought, okay, I should make the 4,000 hours. So I checked my view time over 2017, and I just divided. They give it in minutes, but I divided it, and it's 3,970. So I need 30 more.
I only have 130 hours, man.
I'm curious.
Minutes. That's nowhere near that. No, I have 33,000.
Well, I have very.
I just make longer songs,
1,000 minutes.
I just make longer songs.
But
anyway,
look.
Economically, it's going to hurt YouTube as well. They don't realize it. If the videos aren't monetized, they don't get revenue at all because no ads are played. And if people that say, okay, fuck this, I want to get monetized, they turn off monetization, and they also put on, guess what? Ad blocker.
Yeah.
So there again, no monetization ultimately for YouTube.
Yeah, and that's the main problem, because YouTube doesn't seem to realize that by causing a problem for small YouTubers to monetize their stuff. I'm not even talking about the huge YouTubers that they are demonetizing too, but even the small ones. They are creating more and more content that they can't make money off.
I don't know. I don't see that they're making a ton of money, or small content creators.
Everything counts.
Okay.
There's actually
I think that will turn people off more. If it's uninteresting content or it's just cringe.
Yes, but
it's really small numbers. If you want to really sell shit, you sell it on really big channels.
But there's also been
PewDiePie, whatever,
There's also been a number of people who have said, PewDiePie is an incredible outlier. I don't think anybody else has had his success, but there's
no, absolutely not. He's got like 5 times more subscribers than the next most popular person on YouTube.
Yeah, and there have been people that have pointed out that mid-sized channels actually serve as very good indicators of where trends are.
You're talking about those in the 6 digits.
Not even 6 digits.
Not even,
in the 10 to 30,000 range, even lower than that. Like 1,000 to 30,000 subs are what the fuck is the term they use? Micro influencers.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about micro influencers and how you have thousands upon thousands of channels that are, let's say, in the 1,000 to 10,000 range. Well, those people generally, like Ark Warhammer, before he started to get much bigger, had an absolutely dedicated fan base. So when he talked about Warhammer stuff, those people knew about Warhammer and they were going to take his recommendations seriously.
Yeah.
And those kinds of channels have actually quite a lot of power. And one of the groups that's actually going to be hit the hardest is people that do short music clips and people that do animation, because those are, generally speaking, very effort intensive for very low actual playtime.
Well, in all fairness, they're going to touch.
That's why I should go back to making streams, right? No more music.
Well, but, I mean, it's going to affect people on the response kind of videos like us, the critical ones, the ones that think about things. But even people like, for example, Aiden Paladin, I love her stuff. We are going to be affected. People like her are going to be affected. She's rather big, though, so she might just get herself over the top.
Also, her videos are over half an hour long. So, so she'll get more.
But, I mean, if you're really interested, you will listen to the whole of the video.
Absolutely.
But the thing is
what happens to a content creator like me. I can put out a video that in under 4 minutes takes a specific point that's advanced by pseudo-progressives, and I can break that down philosophically. I need 4 minutes. I don't need 7, as, say, Mundane Matt kept suggesting to me. He's like, he honestly, he's convinced that if I did 7-minute videos, I would have considerably better engagement. I can do it in 4. I don't need to find puff material to make it suddenly fit some magical algorithm point.
You're talking Matt Jarbo, is it?
Yeah. He took a look at one of my videos and he said, honestly, it was a perfectly good video. It's just you needed to do something to flesh it out to 7 to 10 minutes, because that's the sweet spot for YouTube content creation. People have about that much attention.
I don't know. One thing about his style that makes sense. He blubbers up on so much that I would probably watch double his videos if he would just blabber less. It's
true.
so much
I was actually going to say
he repeats himself all the time.
I know he has to fill his whole video because
honestly, my problem with Matt's videos is they don't include him getting run down by a PUBG dune buggy often enough.
You could make you could make
you first.
Well, you could make videos in which you broaden the topic out a bit, in which you talk about more than you otherwise would in a single video.
Being that, I mean, if we're going to take the concept of patriarchy, the video I did on that, I very specifically set myself a challenge to debunk it in 3 minutes or less. And I did so. Like that in and of itself is pretty fucking phenomenal when you're talking about a guy who doesn't have a high school education.
Well, that's also what your style is, and that's also what you built your fan base on. Matt is someone who tends, and I don't mean to say anything negative about him because I do watch his videos, but the man tends to play the algorithm like hardcore. Like,
you know what? He treats it as a business. So I mean,
and
credit
more power to
him doing it.
For him, it is a business. I mean, he earns his living like that.
Yeah.
Is it a business for you?
I would actually much prefer to be employed in my regular job right now.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is that the new new monetization guidelines seem to be targeting people who want to treat this more as a business and YouTube is probably hoping that they'll target a more professional audience by doing so. It will hurt their short-term creators, but in the long term, I think they're hoping to attract a lot of people who will treat this more like news corporations do.
But that's the thing.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work for the simple reason that it doesn't address their bias.
What they're going to...
It's independent of that. Well, do you really think that monetization has anything to do with them wanting to change the content? You think that
honestly, the content they're going to end up with,
in
my opinion, is going to be your standard fucking fail compilation, wrecked feminism shit. It's going to be your Jordan Peterson stuff, which they clearly don't want. I mean, they've moved to get that material less prioritized in the recommended stuff. But I mean, he's fantastically fucking popular, and there's fairly valid reasons for it. And they're going to get a lot of fluffy shit, or they're going to get the controversial shit like Logan Paul or Paul Logan or whatever the fuck his name is. Logan Paul. I hope it's not Paul Logan. Paul Logan is a great actor.
No,
Martin, do you think that they actively work on not on preventing stuff going viral? Because that's really what it is like, Do they actively prevent on things catching on, whatever that may be?
Yeah, they
Twitter
do.
does.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
YouTube does too. It's already been proven a few times.
I can look.
I mean,
I can
it
look at
really
my
wouldn't
Twitter
be
feed
that
right
hard
now.
for me to buy it. Honestly, it really wouldn't be that hard for me to buy it.
I can't help but wonder if
Modwain,
part of this is part of the reason for I can't help but wonder if part of the reason for this is just laziness on the part of YouTube. But as a result of this, they will be able to. Well, they don't have to make as many tiny individual payouts to people, and they don't have to calculate millions of 42-cent payouts to
you know what?
tiny
You only get
YouTubers.
paid. You only get paid if you reach $70.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
You don't get paid 20.
I've
Yeah, but
already
the
made
name of the-
some money, but I'll never be able to touch it.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
I-
name of the
I only have
game,
20
the name of the game is work smarter, not harder. And if they can get an algorithm to do something they don't have to pay someone to do, they'll probably do it.
They do already
Oh,
have
no,
that
I-
algorithm. That's how it's already calculated. AdSense already does that automatically.
That's
They
my
don't
point.
touch it.
It's not done by a person.
Yeah.
Of course
No,
not.
it's an
done by the
algorithm.
All
algorithm.
automated.
All right.
It's automatic.
They have
Nothing's done.
they have requested they have requests that you can get someone to look at it now. But I
That's, yeah.
I
The whole
honestly
point
kind
of
of have
YouTube, if they want to, if the whole point of YouTube, and that's the same as it was with the Twitter revelations, is it's not going to be a viable business model if it's not automated, because there's just simply too much content. It's just too expensive to review all that shit. So if they want to notch, and that's why I don't believe that the monetization argument, steering content to via monetization argument works for me, because the amount of people who can really live off YouTube full time is a tiny minority anyway.
And it's getting smaller and smaller.
And people who are clever and have figured it out have moved to other monetize themselves, like Styx Hexenhammer, right? He goes with Patreon,
That's
Jordan
what I-
Peterson
yeah.
goes
Well,
with
look
Patreon.
at- I
Matt
mean,
Jarbo goes with Patreon, because
I don't-
you don't
I don't
need
think-
as long as your
PayPal.
videos are hosted, they are
Well,
free. That's the payment.
And while I don't necessarily agree with many of the things that say TJ Kirk has to say, he does Audible sponsorship. I mean, there are methods out there to get yourself an income. There absolutely are. I mean, in my case, I simply can't treat this as a full-time job, because it's now almost insurmountable for me with the time I have if I'm working to fit into my schedule, making enough content to actually play the algorithm in, say, the manner that Matt Jarbo does. And like I said, I mean, I credit him for having the dedication and
It's a full-time job, definitely.
and the perspicacity to do so. He's clearly got it figured out. He does it well. So he's clearly a savvy businessman in this arena. I don't have some of those skills, and to develop some of those skills.
His parents do not regret sending him to business school.
Yeah, and I mean, some of those skills are skills that take time to develop. Like, I mean, look at Devil's Advocate. He sunk 3 straight months into 3D modeling, and he's got some pretty fancy shit. It's not on Doom level, but it's pretty fancy shit. But these are simply things that, like, if I go to work as I normally do, I don't have time. I tend to work 10-hour days, 60 to 70 hours a week, and usually have an hour commute minimum, assuming I work in town. So what YouTube has done is made it almost impossible for somebody like me, who I don't think I'm a complete idiot, and I think I've got something to say, but it's basically fundamentally impossible for me to get monetization or to change this so that I could theoretically choose to do it as a full-time job.
I guess I'm lucky that I think I could combine my work with video making.
And you know,
Sort of doing, I guess.
I'm not well positioned like a Jordan Peterson, where he does stuff that is easily translatable to a videotaped presentation or a streamed presentation.
Yeah.
He's already a lecturer. This is what he does
You
professionally.
talk for a living. That's perfect.
yeah, you
More
know,
or less,
you bring up a good point. I will give you that one. That is a good point.
I mean, and
Small creators should have-
what I do in my streams, I do sort of like lessons on archaeology in my case.
Oh my god! But no one likes digging up old bones.
But I do.
Hey,
I
his
do.
wife is totally fine with their
Teaching
sex
is a
life.
great.
What? I didn't hear that. What?
Your wife is totally fine with your sex life.
Absolutely, man. I always have bones.
Anyway, I mean, we're sidetracking a bit, but the whole idea that YouTube wants to streamline, let's call it streamline, the way that people earn money off of YouTube isn't the problem.
I wouldn't call it streamlining. I would call it professionalizing.
Well, call it however you want to call it. It doesn't mean a difference. It's just words. It's no real meaning.
Well, it's like Mark said. You know, he can't do this as a full-time job now or transition to that, even if he wanted to. And like I was saying earlier, YouTube seems to be targeting a more professional audience.
And again, this won't change anything, because the main problem why YouTube isn't earning money, and the main problem why a lot of people on YouTube aren't earning enough money, isn't because they don't have enough views or their channel isn't big enough. I mean, if you have people, I stopped monetizing all my work for the simple reason that even if I do monetize it, YouTube demonetizes me anyway. Now, I'm a small channel, but I know that this is happening with the larger channels as well, because they keep telling us shit is hitting the wall. Bearing is using Virtual Shield to boost his income.
There's a lot of fear. It seems like the team who runs YouTube, there's a lot of fear in them of lawsuits and.
Well, I mean, you know, given their history, you know, with the DMCA bullshit all those years ago, and all that shit that popped up with the music lawsuits and whatnot, they have pretty much every right to be kind of, you know, gun shy.
It's as if their assholes are a bit too clenched, though.
I agree with that too.
There's a problem also with, and I don't remember who it was, but there's I saw 2 or 3 days ago, somebody came across my Twitter feed where they had received a demonetization appeal from some other group that had issued the complaint about non-royalty music that they had in their video. Like it's not owned by anybody, but this group it's basically lawsuit baiting. Is exactly what it is. It's the same concept as patent trolling. Where
but
this is unowned material.
I get that a lot on tracks of mine. It's funny.
Yeah, there's
people who don't own it
that is just completely royalty free, but there are still interest groups out there or interests.
Or even if there's royalties on it,
how to abuse the system in order to redirect the monetization that is allowed to them.
Well, yeah, but you're kind of bringing up a byproduct of an entirely different issue, and that's the lawsuit culture that exists in the country that YouTube, you know, running
primarily functioning in.
Yeah, it's very much not something that would be, you know, YouTube specific or something that very much YouTube could control in it by itself. That's something that we need to do about patent trolling and lawsuit culture in general before we could even start to make, you know, steps towards correcting that, I feel.
Which is not unfair,
still... I think the elephant in the room is not monetization at all. It's if they tamper with the algorithm on what bubbles up and what's being buried, right? What's being shown.
I think the elephant in the room is the fact that the Damore memo has sparked a lawsuit that is indicative of the culture within YouTube and Google entirely.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but that's I don't think monetization is really the issue here.
Was that with the white privilege, or the dude talking about privilege in the Google culture and how white guys don't get?
Well, the concept that, like, part of his complaint is that there were like town hall meetings within the company where they would specifically go out of their way to laud people who had met 50-50 diversity goals or representative diversity goals set out by management, and then people who did not, who incidentally had, say, diversity quotas within their department that were reflective of the country at large, were maligned. Like saying that you have to have 50% insert identity here is unreasonable if you're looking at, say, computer programming, where comp sci graduation rates in the US, it's about 80% male, 20% female. Or sorry, it's 85% male, 15% female. And Google actually employs the 20% of their workforce is in comp sci is females. Well, they're already beating the national representation, but it wasn't good enough. It had to be 50%. Like that's That's a demand for social engineering.
But I don't think, but it's that is the elephant in the room, but that has nothing to do with monetization. Would you agree? I mean, it's to do with maybe algorithms, playing the game and hiding stuff. Okay, we allow this channel to grow because it's a female millennial or whatever. It's a trending person, and we don't allow that channel to grow.
The issue all stems from somewhere, and if the culture behind the algorithm's design is controlling what it's hiding and what it's promoting, then the issue is the culture and who designed the algorithm.
I mean, look at
but it's nothing to do with monetization, because it's going to hit everybody. It's going to hit everybody the same unless they're successful. So
if you have a culture that prioritizes the advancement of people that are talking about identitarian material, right? From a whites are bad, cis het males are bad, patriarchalism is bad. If that's the culture within your company and you control how that material is disseminated, then that will impact the algorithms which promote material.
Which will then impact monetization.
There is a very simple, basic bottom line why YouTube will not function. This won't change a thing either. Because
Sans is about to drop some knowledge on you, 2018 style.
Yes. At one point, YouTube and by that Google wants to make money, but they abhor capitalism. And therein lies an incredible problem. They are fighting capitalism by forcing diversity, by forcing certain ideologies, and that's eating up their bottom line. And no matter what stuff they're going to do,
because of capitalism.
Well, no matter what they're going to do, they are not using capitalism. They are using sociology. They're using Marxism.
But they still use capitalism to, generate to finance that.
But they're trying to destroy that same capitalism at the same time.
I predict in about
the ends justify the means.
I predict
their money,
in 6 months.
Or the means justify the end, rather.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
6 months, when they see that they are losing money left, right, and center. Because if you have 1 million subscribers or channels that have just the minimum of making 10 cents for the owner of the channel, but that 10 cents you get 6 cents or 5 cents, I don't know how the breakdown is, to Google. That's money going into Google. If they don't have no money, they are going to bleed money, because firstly, many people will just turn off monetization and get alternate means of financing themselves. I have myself a maker support. I'm not pushing it, and I won't push it because I'm too self-conscious to push it. And
support Carlos on Maker.
No, don't support me. No,
This is his way of begging for money.
No, I don't beg.
Subscribe to his Patreon.
I don't have Patreon.
I'm sorry. I think
so. No.
But I think you have a very.
They will look.
You have a very simplified view of the way that Google earns money. They don't earn money directly advertising on videos.
No, they do earn through.
You know how they earn money? They earn money by watching who watches those videos and then feeding them their advertisements elsewhere. You just need to use Chrome, the browser, and be signed into your Gmail profile, and they'll watch your behavior. So that's where the money is. It doesn't really matter whether they show the advertisements, and you can only watch so many advertisements anyway. It doesn't really matter.
The funny thing is, though, the money is in advertisement. I mean, not for small channels like ours, but if you look like a channel like Thunderfoot, Bearing, Sargon of Akkad, with tens of thousands of views within the first day.
Example.
Yeah, indeed. With tens of thousands of views within the first day. You don't even have to have a commercial in front of it. Just because not all commercials are videos. Sometimes it's only the food bar.
Well, it could just be that you're redirected to another video that is in your feed. A lot of people have autoplay on. They have autoplay on. So there's loads more ways of making money than just simply showing some ad.
You know what I think the solution to all this is, and I think Raven will appreciate this. Hans, get the Hubschrauber.
Ja, ich hol den Hubschrauber.
Get to the chopper! No.
Jawohl.
Hubschrauber über alles?
40 lessons at Rosetta Stone just to learn that phrase.
No, actually, I worked with enough Germans that I was like, hey, well, I know that Schnellschraube means speed screw or speed screw.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so you worked with enough Germans to appropriate their language, you fucking
Yes.
race.
Yes, I did.
You are scum, and you should feel scum.
No, actually,
I also
stop
appreciate
with your social justice bullshit, appropriating culture, language, and blah blah blah.
I also
That is good.
I went out of my way to appropriate and appreciate camping culture.
No, that's just being poor.
You know, I actually have a question. I actually have a question.
Appropriating Franconian culture.
I've actually got a question. So we have all these social justice warriors, but why don't we have any social justice mages?
Because
I know we have warriors, we have tanks. Why not magic users?
Yes, no,
Let me
seriously.
give you an honest answer. Shut the fuck up and listen to wisdom for a change.
Okay.
Even within fantasy, certain rules have to be followed.
And actually, I disagree that we don't have social justice mages, because social justice mages can, in the context of, say, Dungeons and Dragons, use spells like Alter Self. Have you noticed the number of people pushing the fucking kitty drag queen shit?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I
Fair
have.
point. Fair
What
point.
kind of spells do they do? Age spells?
I don't know. There's that one weirdo in Toronto that I'm 56 and I've already had 7 kids, but I'm going to role play as a 6-year-old with my new mommy and daddy and have sex with them.
No.
Wait, he was in Toronto?
That was
No,
in Toronto.
marking, not role play. He's not role playing.
He actually thinks he's a 6-year-old girl.
Yes.
Creepy man used stare. It's super effective.
God, not Danielle. God damn it. How did we segue to this?
But no, you know how you got to that one though? I mean, I forgot who it was. I'm not sure if it was Jordan Peterson or someone else. Or I can't remember. Anyway.
Look, let's just blame
No,
Jordan.
it was what's his face?
Modwain.
Never mind.
Modwain, we've already decided we're going to blame Peterson like the rest of the world.
Yes.
Fair enough.
And if it's not Peterson, it's obviously Hitler or Trump.
Obviously.
The question was, okay, so you're a woman, but you say you are a man. Why are you not an old man? Well, obviously I'm not old because I'm not old. Yeah, but you're also not a man. So if you're going to say, well, I'm now a man, therefore I am a man, why can you not say I'm an old man?
Vanity.
But
Vanity.
this guy-
Gender
possible.
identity.
All of these,
Always wanted to be an old man.
all of
I
this,
don't know.
a lot of this gender dysphoria can simply be jotted down to people are vain. These are vanity projects that people set up for themselves.
I would very much like to quote.
Some are not. But
I would very much like to quote the Ostrogothic ruler conquered by Justinian, and his last words were "Vanity of vanity, all is vanity." Right before,
as I was
Byzantine
saying,
Empire.
Actually, his last words were
most
Not
likely,
the best.
gender archaeologists are gender identitarians' worst enemy, because when we dig up their bones, all we find are male and female bones.
Man,
Honestly, if I could undergo a vanity project to be perceived as sexually attractive as Sean Connery was a decade ago, I'd be fine with it.
I'm sorry, but I don't need that project because, hey, Sean Connery ain't got nothing on me.
oh yeah, everyone likes Santa. Everyone likes Santa Claus. You just climb down their chimneys at night and steal the presents.
You should start by talking like this.
Sean,
Anyway, I think we had enough talk about this demonetization bullshit and why it's once again not going to work. So what else were we going to talk about?
Do we want to talk about the Swedenization of Canada?
6 months.
Legalization of Canada. Well, actually, no, I did say that Marking Bad wanted to talk about the increase in fake rape. No, not fake rape. Fake crimes.
Fake hate crimes. So here you go.
Yeah.
Fake rape, fake hate crimes. What's the difference?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, they come, I think, somewhat from the same the same place in society. So you've got this young lady who claims that a man was, he snuck up behind her twice and was cutting at her hijab. And the second time when she turned around, he just like grinned at her and walked away.
11-year-old girl, too.
That's fucking creepy.
Yeah.
See, it was an Asian guy as well, by the way.
See, here's the question that I really have to ask.
It doesn't really matter.
Here's the question that I really have to ask. Did her parents tell her to do this, or did she decide to do it all on her own? And once we know the answer to that question, we can then ask the more pressing question of what in God's name made this 11-year-old girl do this?
No, that I find interesting, and I can't say it has been planned. I can't say it was organized. But what I understood is that Justin Trudeau had less than 1.5 hours before he condemned it.
All of the federal leaders in Canada were all over that like starving dogs on steak.
Yeah,
talking about how this is not what we are as Canadians. Well, clearly it's not, since it didn't fucking happen.
They need they need it for its justification, right? For whatever.
Even if it did, the guy who did it
transphobe legislation and bullshit.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is we're currently in the middle of a discussion in Canada about the necessity for yet another law intended to socially engineer. In this case, M103 was a motion put forward to study Islamophobia, and they only mentioned by name Islamophobia. They didn't mention anti-Semitism or anti-Christian sentiment or anti-atheist sentiment for that matter. They only picked the one hot button topic as though it was somehow relevant. And they're in this motion, they dedicated themselves to studying whether or not there were enough Muslims, working in public sector employment, in the government, etc. It's like
they measure it by the outcome again, is it?
Yes,
they measure it by the outcome.
But again, the one point that people seem to misunderstand, or at least I find very interesting, is that the girl said the guy was Asian. So how is this a Canadian problem?
Modwain, if he's a Canadian citizen, then
hold on, straight up. What does that have to do with anything?
Well, it depends on what definition of Asian we're using. Are we using the BBC definition of Asian?
Was he an Asian who was born in Canada? Was he raised in Canada? What is his ethnicity?
Is he a Canadian citizen? That's my question. Is he a Canadian citizen?
Yeah, that's the only thing
that he's Asian. Who knows? Yeah,
I mean, he could have been an Inuit. They have Asian features.
I mean, even I've been to Canada. I'm not a Canadian citizen, but you wouldn't tell by my ethnicity.
A young Asian male, 5'8" to 6 feet tall, wearing black pants, a black hoodie, and brown gloves, and had a mustache. So
and a sister.
Oh, okay. I'm calling bullshit on an Asian man with a mustache.
First Nation.
Dude, okay, no, hold on. Have you seen any of the Yakuza movies? Have you played any of the games?
No, I play Mafia games like a real American.
I have to go, guys. Tomorrow.
No, real Americans play Grand Theft Auto.
Guys,
Canadians play Mafia.
Guys, one moment.
Take care, Carlos.
Let's give Carlos a moment of time to say goodbye.
Check him out. Make a support.
Bye, everyone. I have to get up early tomorrow. I would love to stay longer, but I have to get to some sleep because I have to drive 130 kilometers there and back, and 130 kilometers back. So
support Carlos's alcoholism on Maker Support.
Yeah, donate to Patreon.
Yeah, exactly. I want good whiskey.
Help him have enough time to bury his bone in his wife's backyard.
I don't bury my bone in my backyard. I will bury it, in
the front yard.
Fuck you. Sleep well. See you next time, mate.
Love you, Carlos.
Love you,
guys.
Take care,
bro.
So, interestingly, one of the takeaways from this, and I cannot remember who it was, but it's an ex-Muslim commenter on Twitter, and he asked fairly known for being an anti-Muslim commenter. And he asked his mom, who she's still a practicing Muslim, but apparently very moderate. And her opinion was the reason this girl made this story up could have been that she looks around the school and it, is subject to some amount of social distance because she wears a hijab. And this was an attempt to teach her, to try and prove to her parents that this was somehow a danger to her, and maybe they would relent and let her be like other kids that she goes to school with. And it's it's an 11-year-old. This is not actually unreasonable.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I'm sorry, rambling. I understand what you're saying, but the main reason why I don't believe this is the case is because of the speed at which the story got picked up by other news outlets and even the politicians in Australia.
I'm not surprised at all. It's just fodder for them.
No, but it is. But even if it's fodder for them, someone needs to see the message first. That someone needs to tell someone else, "Hey, look, we got this. Let's get in on this."
Yeah, but I mean, one of the politicians that was almost immediately on it in Canada, and I cannot remember her name, but she's a member of Trudeau's cabinet. And I don't recall what she does, but there was this big hullabaloo when she was elected. Oh, she's the first female immigrant from Pakistan to have been elected to the parliament, and she's the first Pakistani immigrant woman to have been named to the cabinet. And then it turned out that when her mother got to Canada with her as a child, her mother lied about her being born in Pakistan. She was actually born like 30 or 40 kilometers the other side of the border into Iran, and her mom lied to secure asylum rights.
All I'm really going to say.
And this woman apparently knew about this lie prior to her running for office. And so at that point, I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't begrudge that you ran for office, but I do begrudge the fact that you did not correct a known lie about your origin.
And I think she's still following the lie, because the fact that this story got picked up so fast means that people were in on it. You have to have prior knowledge to pick it up this fast.
All you have to do is have a Muslim woman call the news and say, "My 11-year-old daughter suffered Islamophobia," and the media would jump on that like wild.
Look at what happened in New York, right? During the election, 22-year-old woman, I believe it was, complained that 3 men in drunk men in MAGA hats accosted her on the MTA, and it blew up. And it turned out that she had fabricated this story to prevent her father from finding out she had been out with her non-Muslim boyfriend drinking, both things her father had decreed she should not do. Yeah. His response to her having done this was to shave her head and make her publicly apologize at a press conference.
Yeah, which is understandable, but even that
you're dealing with a shame-based culture.
Yes, again, this is true, but even that story, I mean, she is using this to get her way. She was trying to change reality in her favor. Fair enough. But it didn't fall through as fast as this one did. It didn't get picked up by other media as fast.
It took almost 2 weeks in the New York case.
And this one was less than 1.5 hours, less than 2 hours.
Yeah,
which doesn't make sense. If it's that fast,
she's an 11-year-old girl.
Some people must have. I'm not talking about the 11-year-old girl. I'm talking some people must have known what was going to happen before.
Honestly, I think it's also possible that it's the Boko Haram effect. When Boko Haram killed a bunch of boys and literally set them on fire while they were alive, nobody gave a shit. When Boko Haram kidnapped a bunch of girls and used them for fucking baby slaves, the world lit up.
Canada is vast. They go months without seeing another person.
If you keep lying about Canada, you're going to experience serial rake.
Serial.
I love
it. Does that come with a side of maple syrup?
In Swedenized Canada, Leafs rake you.
I was.
But it is scary,
just in the last year in Canada, we've had at least 3 incidences that I can easily recall where recent immigrants were found to have behaved grossly inappropriately, engaged in just egregious sexual misconduct. There was a 38-year-old father of several from, I believe, Afghanistan, who was caught in West Edmonton Mall, which used to be called the world's biggest mall, touching teenage girls.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we've got the guy in Windsor.
I'm assuming inappropriately.
Yes.
Yeah, God forbid he goes up and like touches their shoulder. Like, can you move? I was standing here.
Yes, you're standing on my towel. No.
Oh, is that what they're calling it now?
Yeah. And then in Windsor, there was a man who, if I recall correctly, he attacked a boy sexually, and he got like no actual fucking jail time. And then there was another case, I believe, in Ontario, where a man was charged with marital rape and was let off because he didn't understand it was a crime here. No, ignorance is not a fucking defense.
Yeah, that is if you're a Muslim, apparently.
Sounds like this.
Going back to Edmonton again.
Yeah, but
the first major Islamist-inspired terrorist event in Canada happens in Edmonton. The guy is literally 15 minutes too early to mow down any of the 60,000 people leaving their football stadium. So instead of being patient, he runs down a cop, jumps out, stabs the cop several times, runs away on foot, gets a hold of a rental truck, and then mows down 4 more. He is not charged with any terrorism-related crimes. He's charged with 5 counts of attempted murder, and his lawyer is presenting a case of mental incompetence as a defense, even though he had an ISIS flag in his car. Like,
yeah, well, I mean,
there's clearly a fucking problem here.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Canada was weird. Canada was fucked up before that. I mean, this is the same country that had some dude on a bus cut off some lady's head and start showing it to the police and taking bites out of it. So I mean,
yeah, and screaming that he was what was it? He was the Wapiti, I believe. He was a native wind spirit. That's what it boils down to.
It was something that wasn't. It was something that wasn't Islamic terror. That's all I know.
But
it was not
Toronto that a guy got convicted to 2 years jail because he ate bacon in front of a Muslim woman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You shouldn't have been eating that bacon in front of a Muslim woman, man.
Yeah, because of course eating bacon is illegal.
That's hardcore shit, dude. That's like death sentence level.
Let me go back. Let me tie Jordan Peterson back all into this, right? So he's pointed out that he believes that legislating mandated speech is a terrible idea, right?
Yeah,
I think we're all fairly on board with that being his position. So, speaking to the possibility of the abuse, in Toronto, there was a man renting a suite to a Muslim couple. Whatever went on, the lease was going to be terminated. He was starting to show the property to other people.
Yes.
They had him dragged before a human rights tribunal on claims of religious intolerance for not removing his shoes in his own property because they claimed it was a sanctified prayer space because they were Muslim. He was fined $12,000.
Yeah.
Should have took his shoes off.
I mean, no, stuff like this.
In his own property.
Countries need to go back. Western countries need to go back to the rule of law and stop being governed by identity politics.
Well, and stop having
extrajudicial opinions has done just fine for the past 2 years. Thank you very much. Look at all we've accomplished. Harvey Weinstein, and we lost an election.
A watershed moment.
We lost an election.
No, that was more like a beached whale moment with Weinstein.
And it's current year, and
Oprah is going to become president in 2 years. Don't forget that.
Well, if this is going to happen,
have the first one that doesn't know shit about politics. Why do another TV star that doesn't?
No. That's a big difference between Oprah Winfrey and Trump.
Yeah,
Trump never said that if you are a racist, you need to die. Oprah did.
What the fuck?
Yeah, Oprah said that the way to deal with the racist attitudes of the elderly is for those people to just get on with it and die.
I mean, I'm sorry, but if that's going to be your president, you ain't seen nothing yet with Barack Obama.
Oh yeah,
they'll be dropping bombs in the States every day for the whole 4 years.
Who would like a queen bee? Who would like a queen bee for president? That's the thing.
Barack Obama seems like a fucking treasure at this point, doesn't he?
I don't know, man.
Here's a hot take from the Aziz Ansari fucking debacle.
That wasn't a debacle. That was a joke.
Can we please get a regular politician president again? It's been a while since we've had that.
I find it fascinating that people are all fussy about, oh my God, Trump fucking.
Here's why you should read out that headline, Mark.
I mean, I think I think Bush Sr. was the last normal fucking president we had.
But the complaints about Trump having potentially slept with porn stars, were you paying attention to in history class when they talked about JFK? Any of the fucking Kennedys? Jesus Christ.
The worst part is I find myself more often than not defending Trump, and I am not a fan of the dude.
You know, if you really want to find, if you really want to find the secret to JFK, you can pull him out of the seat that he was riding in.
The problem is he was stuck to it.
Once upon a time, you could have combed his thoughts out of Jackie's hair.
I love you, Mark.
Oh, that's terrible.
And people wonder why I'm not monetized.
Well, don't worry about me. I'm not. Well, I am monetized, but I'm not even monetizing. I can't help. But stop caring about it.
I mean,
but we talked about that already, so let's not go there again.
Whether or not Trump is good, bad, or indifferent, the fact that he's seriously, he's made people that are virulently pro-immigration defend the concept that if these countries are not shitholes, why are there hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world desperately seeking to leave them?
Well, I mean,
I call it 4D chess if you want, but
if we talk about Haiti, this is, to me, the biggest example of double standards in the left. I mean,
look, Haiti is a shithole that's hit with numerous fucking natural disasters.
And on that, I'm going to say bullshit, because Haiti is half of an island. The other half of the island has been hit with all those shit things as well. But the
nobody even knows what it's called.
The Dominican Republic doesn't have any problems. Well, I'm not going to say any, but nothing compared to what Haiti has.
You have to have a strong economy to weather natural disasters.
But strong economies don't just happen. You have to work for shit.
Why does nobody ever talk about Tobago's problems?
Well, for example.
Why does no one ever talk about what?
Tobago's problems. Just random island in the Caribbean.
That's why. No one cares about the random island in the Caribbean. Nuke them all.
Except for the country of Haiti.
No,
fascinatingly.
Nuke them all and sell the land. Nuke them all.
Haiti seems to be the only country in the Caribbean that we arbitrarily care about as a people.
Yeah. Nuke them all, sell the land.
Possibly Cubans when they're useful as
that's because
as political tools.
Yeah, because everyone forgot that the first DACA recipient in America wasn't a DACA recipient. He was a boy, and his father wanted him back to Cuba. So Clinton used gun violence to get the boy back to Cuba. But when Trump now says, hey, maybe we need to get rid of some of the DACA recipients, then suddenly the left is all over the place like, oh, no, you can't do that. Where were they when, what's his face? I forgot his name now.
To be fair, I think the left was against Clinton doing that too. Not the corporate left, but they left.
Against Clinton doing what?
I forgot his name. Let me see if I can find it real fast.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I remember seeing several Daily Show clips where they were really going against that from a moral standpoint. They despised what Clinton was doing.
Yeah, but nobody stopped it. Nobody fought to end it.
Yes, but everybody presented Hillary Clinton as a champion of the downtrodden dreamer when during the elections,
Bernie Sanders got slammed.
Yeah, but the irony is that Hillary during Clinton's campaign in '92 or whatever it was going on and on about super predators, and then Bill turned around and fucking catapulted Elian Gonzalez back to Cuba.
Oh, that was his name.
Yep. I'm not saying I'm old, but that was in my teenage years.
I forgot his name.
Elian Gonzalez.
Yeah, it's possible. I can't remember. Fair is fair. But yeah, no, and I mean,
and that kid grew up to become Naked Ape.
maybe. And
remember, we need knockout studies on nigger dick size.
But
I know Naked Ape is part Hispanic. That's the only reason I made that joke.
But in all fairness, if we look
Is he
at
still relevant?
I don't know.
Like all I did, most of what I know about him is I get from a friend of mine, and a friend of mine thinks that he's a joke. So
He's very intelligent.
I believe,
but he cares more about. I think he cares more about humor and silliness than about actually solving problems. And that's okay. I'm kind of the same way.
I would have got the entire opposite impression, Mr. Analytical.
Well, I'm ultimately cynical, and I don't really care about anybody but myself. So
I like having fun with numbers. I'm an honorary Asian.
Well, I'm just a talking head on the YouTube, so.
You're Santa Claus.
Hey! Fuck that! I'm real.
No,
I'm real.
Kata Klaus.
And according to my lovely wife, I'm a huge YouTuber.
Technically, Saint Nicholas was real too, and technically he got into a fist fight at the Council of Nicaea. So,
okay, no offense, Modwain, but when your wife says you're a huge YouTuber, I'm worried that she's talking about your waistline.
Oh no, I'm sure she is. I'm not worried about that at all.
I mean, you're not boogie big, but
I'll tell you what.
Boogie big. There are markets that are not boogie big.
I'll tell you what, Modwain, you need like an assistant. You need a Black Pete.
A Black Pete, that would be good. Yeah.
I'm Modwain 2988 coming at you through the power of internet.
Hey, by the way, I do have an assistant in some of my videos.
Yeah,
I do have a small mini me.
Oh yeah, true.
And I am huge, but in another way. Indeed, John, indeed. No one ever responds to my when I use my mini me. No one ever responds to it. So either people don't
know. Is it you, or like editing your voice, or is it someone else? That's
hence what I've mini me. Come on, get the hint. Mini me. I can't put it on clearer than that.
What? Do you hook a camera up to your dick? Does it talk? I don't know. Specifics in here, Modwain.
Your dick is your mini me.
Yeah, okay, let's get some fucking specifics. I don't play this coy bullshit. I'm not a social justice warrior. I prefer direct fucking language, Mr. Crowder.
I like coy bullshit.
How is there no more direct language than mini?
Am I editing? I am editing my voice. I am editing my voice. For all I know, Mini you could be the secret child that you haven't told us you have. For the love of God, Modwain, direct language. Do you fucking speak it?
Who is thinking in metaphors now?
This is like 4D cash with Trump.
What was that?
How do you know when a joke has gone too far?
Thank you for the compliment, by the way, John. I got a compliment. There you have it. Fuck you all. I got a compliment.
10 out of 10. Compliment again.
Do you call your dick Black Pete?
Of course not. I don't want to. I don't want to blackface that.
I got something at the moment.
So stupid.
Oh my god.
I love that meme.
There is a point where we needed to stop, and we have clearly passed it. But let's keep going and see what happens.
Listen, there is a reason why it's called Modwain's House
There's a
of
line,
Fun.
and you've crossed it.
We usually do. And normally we start with a topic, and then we discuss it, and we discuss it well, and we bring in stuff and argument. And it's a really good discussion, and then all of a sudden it derails. I'm really not good at.
And sometimes we never get back on track.
Sometimes never get, which is still fun, I've been told. So there you have it. Okay, so I think we've talked about the hate crime, the fake hate crime. I really think it was a fake hate crime.
We covered the fake hate crime. We covered the economics of YouTube. We covered Modwain's little black dick.
There was another one, by the way, that I saw. I can't remember where I found it, but there was a guy, and it's also been designed a hate crime because someone carved 2 swastikas in the snow on a car. But the thing is, the swastika is at a 45-degree angle. It's diagonal. This one was square. Square swastikas are a symbol within, I think, Hinduism, and they are.
I think it's Buddhism. I actually think
it's Buddhism too.
It's marking in very different religions all over the world.
Either way, long before Hitler, what's the word?
Appropriated it.
Yeah, long before Hitler appropriated the swastika, it was a peace symbol.
Well, it still was under Hitler, but basically his piece. The thing
that's
is,
not a piece.
Hitler, peace by violence.
No, walks like a duck.
The cross has been used by many cultures throughout the history of mankind, and the bent cross has been used by many cultures throughout the history of mankind. Nobody has a monopoly on the symbol of two crossed straight lines or any variation thereof.
And as for the peace that Hitler was bringing, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, call it a dictatorship.
But what Hitler did, he put the swastika at an angle. That's the one thing that makes a swastika a swastika. It's at an angle. If it's not an angle, it's not, because then it's just.
Maybe the car was parked at an angle.
It's not an angle. It's been very poorly graffitied.
Well, that too. But this is kind of funny. So once again,
it kind of depends on how you look at it, because from one side it would look like a swastika.
Well, maybe if you look at it from
if you deliberately look at it wrong, like your head is bent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe the car was parked at an angle. It wasn't parked properly.
Maybe it was a guy with scoliosis.
Maybe it was.
I think a guy with scoliosis has a lot more problems on his plate than to be staring at graffiti all day.
But the thing is,
maybe it was the first time they were pulling their head out of their ass, and it was the first thing they saw. You know, that cocked angle, and like you just shove it back in.
The thing is, if we look at all the great news outputs in the last year of people, the poop swastika, the hooded KKK member in the university, swastikas on the street, poop
I didn't hear about no ghosts in the universities.
Oh yeah, no, that was brilliant. Somebody
walked by a science lab and thought they saw
a KKK member.
A KKK mask, and it turned out it was the hood for a microscope.
The idea that
I do remember that.
The idea that any KKK member would be intelligent enough to get into a college is simply absurd.
Hey, look, Hillary did.
There you have it.
Hillary was a Goldwater girl. She wasn't a KKK member.
No, she
was good friends with Robert Byrd, who was a KKK member.
Oh, fair enough.
Yep.
Look, if we're gonna call Dump a KKK member because people who are KKK support him, I'm sure as hell gonna call Hillary a KKK member because she's honest friends with one of them.
That's guilt by association. I don't support that.
Robert Byrd did.
Yeah, well, man.
But the funny thing is that people call Trump a racist because he ran against Hillary Clinton. They forgot that he got close to a lot of race-baiting black people who always saw him as a friend until he ran against Clinton.
Look, I'm not gonna call Trump a racist because I don't think he is, but I will say that he could definitely do with toning down the language he uses because it is very explosive and
it's deliberately so. I think he's perfectly aware of what he's doing.
And I'm not saying that he isn't, but I think that he should consciously tone it down because it's kind of getting to a point where he's just not going to get anything he wants to do done, good or not. He's just not
it's been a year, and the shit poster president bit has gotten old at this point.
Yeah,
but at the same time, if we see what he already has achieved, we have to admit that he's done more than the last 3 presidents before him.
Yes, yeah, I admit he is a Republican.
He's the only one of the last 3 presidents who actually kept their promise about Jerusalem. But I mean,
well, he wasn't. That's not the last 3 presidents. I think
the last 3 that I'm
talked about that.
Last 3 that I'm aware of. Obama said he was going to move it. Bush said he was going to, and Clinton said he was going to. I know for a fact they did it because they said it on camera.
True that.
Holy crap!
So, you know,
Speaking
just
about
everyone-
racist.
Hey,
Everyone-
Clinton didn't know the definition of is. You can't expect him to know.
Is what does is mean?
Speaking about racist stuff, I loved it when everybody lost their shit when Obama said the word nigger.
Oh yeah, everyone.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's like, hey, isn't this double standards? He's black. He is allowed to say it.
Is his white half racist?
I have something I actually want to say to John. We did elect a troll president, but we had 8 years of Everybody Hates Chris the sequel. So
and everyone hates Chris, the president.
this is all I'm gonna say.
I would
I
love to
never
have Chris
understand-
Rock be president.
Oh, who wouldn't?
I don't understand how you can have a president which has won the Peace Nobel Prize before he gets into office and then ends up being the most warmongering president in the history of America, which has pretty much a warmongering history.
Remember,
I don't
it's
know.
Well, I mean, Hitler was the Times Man of the Year in 1936.
remember,
He's
it's
I mean, so
won
the-
it twice, I
This
think.
is not unprecedented.
The
Remember,
creator
it's-
of the Nobel Peace Prize invented dynamite. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's in-
I was horrified. Remember, the important thing is you cannot call a country a shithole, but you can drop a bunch of bombs on it.
oh,
You,
yeah,
can, you can turn a country into a shithole. You just can't call it that because that's offensive.
No, it's not
Yeah, no,
offensive.
it
It's
seems-
actually warmongering. I heard it on the radio today on some talk show. Some Irish woman said, "Oh, she's a shithole. That means he wants war." That's definitely it's the language of somebody who commits genocide. You know,
So,
shithole.
see, you can't call countries shitholes, especially the ones that he calls shitholes, because they're filled with brown people covered in mudslides.
But you can refer to America as a shithole.
Because it is.
Have you seen San Francisco's poop map?
What's the immigration rate from America? I assume it's very, very low. People do not want to leave this place.
Well,
They say they do, but they don't. They don't.
I mean, if
I
you
left.
look
There's
at
not.
fucking-
There's not going to be a second lost generation.
Amy Schumer claimed she was going to leave, and Canada was like, "No, we need people that are useful. Thanks." And then,
people from ISIS. For fuck's sake.
then we proved we were lying.
Hell, my gay cousin said he was going to move to Canada when Trump won, and literally the day Trump won, I shot him a message, and I was like, "So when's your flight?" And all I got as a response was "LOL." We haven't talked since.
Yeah, funny how that.
You should.
That was the last time he ever laughed.
But
Swear to
you
God,
should-
that was the last thing he's
you
ever
should-
said to
you
me,
should
and I haven't heard from him since.
You should shoot him a message right now and ask him if he still needs help packing or if his boyfriend's handled that.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, the Americans that were so much against Trump were all talking about how they were going to Canada. Not one of them mentioned how they were going to go to Mexico, which is a lot closer to where they are now.
He can't
Because
afford
it's a shithole.
He's got those. he can't afford a boyfriend. He's got that 3-letter baggage that no one wants.
Canada, for all you can say about it, is not a shithole. It is a first world country for now.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no,
no,
give it a week. Give it a week.
And it is a desirable place to live.
It's verging on a second world country at this point.
It's a desirable place to live.
Same
the
Sweden,
south of Canada, at least.
No. Consider this, okay? Ontario has a population of just over 14 million, and it has a $300 billion debt. California, with a population of almost 40 million, has about $110 billion debt.
California's
What the fuck is going the fuck on?
The more people, the more debt.
No. California has
Socialism,
less
Michael.
debt.
Oh, California has less debt. Okay, I listened to that wrong.
Like a third of the debt. That
I heard that wrong.
Less than
You said
half.
Socialism.
You said Ontario had 30 million and California had 100 million.
No, California has about 14 million people and has a debt of 300 billion.
I don't know. I have noticed that in America, under Democratic governments, the deficit is far less than under Republican governments.
That explains why Detroit has been struggling with bankruptcy.
Well, in the federal government, on the state level and on the city level, Democrats tend to do worse than Republicans as far as fiscal responsibility goes. But on the federal level, Democrats do better. I don't know why that is, but it seems to be the case.
I would argue that's because Republican.
No, Obama did far better with the deficit than Bush did.
I would argue that's because Republicans govern with an idea of small government and small interactions, which allow people to thrive in small economies. Whereas if you deal with something in a much larger economy, you tend to get people who tend to think on a larger scale.
I think Obama did better given what he was handed, which was a war he had to pay for.
But in the end, Obama doubled the debt. I mean, sorry.
The debt was doubled under Obama, but I don't consider him responsible for that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. People don't consider him responsible, but he was the president. He could have said, you know what? That's money wasted. Fuck it. I'm going to stop. Did he?
We're not going to. You're going to default on a debt. You think that would have been a smart move?
No, I think he's saying defaulting.
He could have stopped putting people and bombs in the Middle East.
Oh yeah, if you stop carpet bombing people like for a minute, Obama, we would appreciate it. I'll give you that much, but
because he didn't, that's why the debt kept increasing, because he was paying for wars. And okay, I'm willing to concede that he didn't start all of these wars. Some of them he did, by the way, but he didn't start all of these wars. But he kept them going.
Well,
he was the first one to say, "I'm going to close Guantanamo Bay."
But and you're also trying to institute a universal healthcare system and a privatized healthcare system infrastructure, which is not going to end well at all.
How are you going to make a universal healthcare system whilst protecting the how do you call it, the pharma industry, and at the same time creating a surplus of money? The pharma industry is protected, so they can't get competition. Because they can't get competition, they can ask whatever they fucking well want. They know the government has a big pile of money, so they're going to say, "Oh yeah, you know that pill? Last year I sold it to you for 50 cents. Yeah, but production cost has gone up, so I now have to ask $600 for it." And shit like this actually happened.
Yep. Martin Shkreli.
I don't even know how you create competition for something that horrible.
Martin Shkreli.
It's quite simple.
Remove all the protections that they have.
That's the thing, is if you look at one of the very few things about the Canadian medical system that is not completely fucking pointless and mismanaged is the fact that Canadian patent law for medical necessities or medications is much shorter than the US. And it's almost impossible to get a patent renewed, which means that after whatever it is, 15 years, I believe, the market has no choice but to allow the no-name brands.
15 years is still too long. Hey, I made a video. I made 2 videos about this, I think. I made a video about this. There's a Dutch professor, and I think his name is Schellekens. I'm not that good. The World Health Organization asked him if he could try and develop a medication based on a medication that already exists, and if he could make it 10% cheaper. It's a small medication. I forgot the name of it.
Was the EpiPen, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't the EpiPen. No. It was something to do with an airway infection, which happens in Africa. It doesn't happen in the Western world.
Malaria?
That one.
No, not malaria. It wasn't something big. It's something small. But because it's small, it's expensive to deal with.
Yellow fever?
But, you can keep guessing, mate. That's not going to help me. But basically, they asked him to see if he could develop the same medicine in a different way.
And cheaper.
And if he could do it 10% cheaper than the original. And he at first thought, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. But I'm going to try it because, hey, I'm a biology major. I'm a biology professor. I need something for my students. Let's do this. In the end, he could produce a working version of the medication for less than 10% of the original price. He thought reaching 10% cheaper would be difficult. It was 90% cheaper. And this is just in one case. India is proving that this is true for shitloads of medication because India doesn't care. India does break the patent laws because they don't care. And that's good. But because of that, they have anti-AIDS medication that they can give to people for $1 a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And no, the problem with the price is not the research and development cost. It really isn't, John. People keep saying that, but what people seem to forget is that most of the research and development cost is usually paid by universities, because these companies work together with universities, and
then the patents are monetized after the fact.
Well, universities and grants and various other what have yous.
But a lot of that money comes from the government as well. And I have no problem. I have no problem with a company earning some money of what they make. So you make a medicine, and if you can produce it for 5 years, you're the only one who can make it. In that period of time, you can earn back the money you spent on it. And this used to be the working model. At this point in time, the banking industry is not the biggest earner. The pharma industry is by far the biggest earners. They dwarf the banking industry. And banking industries is basically using money to make money. They're not producing anything.
Well, the banking industry is built entirely upon the concept of fractional reserve banking. At least the modern one is, which is the whole shit show in and of itself. But without it, our modern economies couldn't function the way they do. So it's kind of one of those necessary evils.
Yeah, but
just for people who rage and complain about the banking industry a lot. A lot of the reason our economies are the size they are is because of the way they work.
Yeah, but one of the main problems.
True.
One of the main problems we have is also because of the banking.
Yeah, and that's true too.
If we look at old banking, old banks used to have a reserve that would cover what they did. Now they're just creating money, and when it fails, the state needs to save the banks, otherwise the banks go bankrupt.
On the money, it actually said this is redeemable in whatever valuta you have, gold or silver or whatever.
But the gold standard, yeah.
Well, we would go back to that. We should go back to that. But the thing is, if we look at the financial crisis in 2008,
at least it wouldn't be air anymore.
Well, yeah, but the banking, the credit crunch of 2008 was a banking crisis. It was created by the banks. It was supported by governments by bailing out the banks. Hell, Greece is in deep shit because Europe bought their debt from the banks, and now we're paying for Greece not being able to pay their banks. But if I'm a company and I have no money, I go bankrupt. It's because of governments saving banks time and again that the banks are not going bankrupt, and therefore we are all...
It's only because you don't owe enough, you see.
Well, yeah.
If you owe 10 million, then you're the king.
Well, the businesses need to be allowed to fail. That's kind of a given.
But banks are not allowed to fail, or actually they are allowed to fail, but then the governments will save them because, hey, banks.
Except in Iceland a while back, where
Iceland was the only one that said, "Fuck you."
Look,
they actually put the bankers in jail.
Yep, they did.
The housing market crash kind of resembles the South Sea bubble, and much to the same way. And I'm just going to switch topics a little bit because this is current. It's very similar to what I am very much expecting to happen to Bitcoin very soon, and a lot of people are going to lose their shirts over that one real quick too.
That one's got to burst too. I mean, I can't
believe that's going to explode, and a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money over it, and it's going to crash a lot of people and probably quite a few small businesses that are hinged off of Bitcoin. It's not going to be good. That was a great idea. That is essentially signed its own death warrant.
Okay, I'm going to respond to Evil Gunny. Evil Gunny, it was a debt crisis, but it was also a bank crisis. The debt crisis was created by the banks. And the banks were in a crisis until the government saved them. And this is what happened with Greece as well. They were, I don't know, a lot of billions in debt by certain banks. These banks were French and German, and the European Union saved those banks. And basically that destroyed Greece. I'm sorry, but if you're unable to pay your loan, then you go default on your loan. You will lose everything you have, and it's done. If a bank loans out more than they have and you can't pay back, it's not only you going over the top, but it's the bank as well. That's why banks were not supposed to loan out more than they have. But that's with fractional banking, that has changed.
Used to be factor 10.
Well, no, it used to be factor 1. It changed into factor 10, and now it's God knows. But it used to be factor 1, and that's around 1950 in Europe. That was the thing. But all of a sudden, and I think it started in London with the financial market in London, where banks actually started to create their own money. And basically said, well, as long as people pay back, we're not in a problem.
Well, that's our weird, have always been a weird thing to me, because it always seems like because of interest, you're never able to generate enough money for some, It's like even if you paid off all the actual debt, you'd still have the interest.
That's the problem of
money, right?
That's the problem of America at the moment. But yeah, Europe is going into that one real fast.
Well, that's how they make money off of it.
That's how banks make money off of it.
Yeah, that's how you play fractional reserve banking.
But if you loan out money that you have, then you still make money. But the amount of money you make is going to be less because there's less money you can loan out. But if you create money that isn't there, and you make money off of that, that's fractional. But with that, if you cannot collect on the debt, that money is disappearing.
Yeah, and that's a problem, but that's why you should be playing smart with money that you're basically creating out of thin air. The problem is that you're playing greedy and you're playing fast and loose with the system that you're essentially set up to fail. Yeah. If you're going to play with that system, you need to play with it with integrity, and you need to play with it with a fair and logical mindset in mind. And
therefore, fractional banking doesn't work.
It does work.
I know
it does work. And I'm sorry, but it does work.
Something that I just heard, but I've always heard that in China you just loan the money and you only pay that back and no interest.
That's a Muslim model, right? Because you're not supposed to.
In Muslims model, you don't pay rent, but you do pay a fee because someone needs to handle it. So it's. Linda Sarsour once said that. Oh, in Muslim world, you don't pay rent over your loan. Yeah, no,
interest.
That's not true.
Yeah, you don't pay interest.
Yeah. You pay interest, which is not rent, but yeah.
See, well, no. Here's the thing. Okay, so both the Quran and the Torah have clauses in them that say that you are not supposed to charge interest to believers of your own religion. However, this is one of the reasons why people rag on Jews a lot, is because it doesn't say fuck all about, because it actually calls it calls interest to other Jews usury, makes no fucking distinction about usurious interest to any other group.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's
you charge the shit out of them Gentiles.
Yep. The Goyim and the Kafir, you could fucking charge them as much interest as you want.
But even amongst Jews, they do act. They just don't call it interest.
Yeah. Well,
they call it a handling fee.
Yeah, and if you're Jewish, you're actually, if you're at all devout, you're actually not supposed to carry a debt beyond the calendar year. By the time the new year starts, you're supposed to have paid your debts off.
Yep.
It's one of the things that they believe. You can't. It's basically a sin. You can't go to heaven if you are indebted to another man for beyond the space of a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the modern mortgage got rid of that tenant real quick.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I know. I've got one. Thanks for reminding me I'm still unemployed.
Well, in all fairness, I love it because this is another topic I once addressed. In the Netherlands, if you make a certain amount of money, you can get a mortgage.
We talked about it last week. Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to finish my story anyway. Fuck it. If you earn a lot of money, let's say about 20,000 euro a year, I think that's the border. It could be somewhere else, but let's say 28,000. If you earn 28,000 a year, you can have a mortgage of 5 times 28,000, which will roughly mean that you have a mortgage payment of about 400 euro a month to pay off the mortgage. But if you earn less than that, you're not allowed to do that. So if you only earn 20,000, You're not allowed to have a mortgage of 5 times 20,000, which would make it 100,000, which would mean that the payment back would be lower as well. But you're not allowed to do that because it's not safe and you might not be able to pay it off. So you're forced to hire. Now imagine that you cannot be allowed to get
You mean to rent?
Yeah, you have to pay rent if you rent. So if you can't pay off your mortgage because it's too expensive at 350 euro, but you are allowed to rent a house for 500 euro.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
That's called good business sense. If I can buy a house where my mortgage payment is, say, $1,200 a month, and I can then rent that house for $1,500 a month. No. You're missing the point. If you make 20,000, you are not allowed to buy a house where your mortgage payment would be 350 because that's not safe. But you are allowed to rent a house for 500 euro.
Well, you're not locked into renting a house.
No, you are locked in because you're not allowed to buy a house.
No, you're not.
You can leave at any time.
Yeah,
you can find a
Stop paying.
You can find another place to stay. No, that's the point. When you're locked into a mortgage,
Unless you could be locked into a lease.
Yeah, but that only lasts for like a year or so.
Yeah, or 2 months. No, well, it usually lasts for a year, and then you have
but the thing with the house
of 2 months.
The thing with the house is with the mortgage, you're locked into that debt. You have to pay that debt off. You are guaranteed to be liable for that debt.
You're going to need a house, no matter what. You're going to need a roof.
The price might be low. The price might be lower, but the responsibility is higher, and it's a long-term payment. And a lot can happen depending on how long your mortgage is. You could lose your job.
Yeah, but you could also lose your job with the 28,000.
Yeah, and you can also lose your job when you're renting, but renting is more
but the thing with the rent is if you lose $500, you don't have to worry about having a mortgage to pay off when you find another job.
But you're not having a house if you can't pay the $500.
That doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, it does.
I know people who sleep in their car because they don't have a house, and they're making.
And don't you think that's a problem?
I do, but that's their choice.
Hey, stop talking about Danny that way.
No, it's an actual friend. It's an actual friend of mine. He works at Amazon, and he has over 5 figures in his bank account. And he's only recently started looking for a house because he's lived in his car for the past 5 months, working at Amazon. He's had the job. He can afford the rent. He has a buddy of his who's been bugging him for 3 months.
I have to respond to John. Thank you, because yes, they are totally missing the point. The point is not whether you can or cannot leave your house. The point is that you're not allowed to be cheaper off by buying a house. You have to rent it, even though it's more expensive, because your income is not high enough. So you are forced to pay more for a house where you could have paid less. And the whole idea that people cannot move their house easily, that's not true either, because you can always sell your house, and once it's sold, you're done with the mortgage.
Well, it's just an unfortunate...
Sorry. There is one thing that I wanted to say. Let's say
One of you mute your mic.
I have a problem. I'm sorry. Let's say that we will have financial problems and we cannot really afford this house. They're going to move us to the house because we're not allowed them to have a house. They're going to move us to the house when the city will pay us a part of the rent. We will still pay more money than we pay at this very moment, just because the law that with a certain income you are not allowed to have a house. So that doesn't make a sense, because instead of leaving us with the cheapest option, which is our house at the moment, they're going to basically pay us on a monthly basis, and we still will have to pay on ourselves also more.
Met de huurtoeslag.
Yes.
Yeah.
My brother has a beautiful house. His whole house is about as big as my living room. He pays nearly double what I pay. But I have a mortgage and he's paying rent.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the protectionism is creating inequality. This is what we see in the pharma industry. This is what we see in rent. This is what we see in banking. These are the problems. This is why I keep saying we talk about society as if we are a capitalistic society. We're not. And this is a problem.
Focus it.
You wanted to say something?
No, I just, no, it's fine. Just thought, talk for yourself, you filthy Dutch person.
No, but this is not something that just happens in the Netherlands. I know this happens in other countries as well. And indeed, like Crusader Soul says,
the opposite, right?
Yeah. But this is what Crusader says as well. He knows people who pay €1,000 rent, but they still don't have enough cash to buy a house. But if you buy a house, you will be cheaper off than those €1,000. But you're
it's just an unfortunate byproduct of that kind of business model.
Well, the thing here is, in order to get a mortgage in America, you have to have good credit, and in order to get good credit, you have to have a history of proving that you pay back loans that you take out.
Fair enough. I can understand that.
And that's the entire system behind getting a mortgage.
It's a little bit of a bar to entry because you cannot get a loan unless you have good credit, but you gain good credit by taking out a loan and paying it back.
It's sort of it's the same conundrum. It's the same conundrum as I need a job to get a car, but most of the jobs that I could get that would let me afford a car require one.
Yeah,
there was something similar going on in Great Britain in the 1960s and 70s. You could not get a job unless you were a part of a work union, but you could not join a work union unless you already had a job.
Yep.
So it's a door to
entry. With the whole work experience these days.
That gatekeeping actually happens in the actors union in the U.S. Yep. You have to be allowed on set as an extra. And so basically they write you a permit to be on set as an extra. You have to work a certain number of jobs, and then you have to be sponsored into the actors union in order to actually get any serious amount of work.
How did you get your start? In The Walking Dead, and in episode 42, at minute 22 about 45 seconds in, I'm off to the right there.
Yeah, that's my foot.
How did you get your start in acting? Well, I was wearing a wig and Harvey Weinstein was looking.
No, but all stupidity aside, this is protectionism. This is socialism. This is why we don't
the guild system, doesn't it?
Yeah, but this is why we don't have how do you call it? This is why we don't have a capitalism. I mean, this is the same thing that there are people in America who are living off minimum wage and they can't afford their life. Now, people are saying, "Oh well, we just raised the minimum wage." Yeah, but if you raise the minimum wage,
that just drives inflation.
That just drives inflation.
The cost of living increases.
Which is the problem? The cost of living is the problem. So how come there are no cheaper houses in a certain area? Well, you're not allowed to buy property. You're not allowed to build new property because it's too cheap. You're not allowed to capture your own sunlight in certain states in America to create cheaper electricity. You're not allowed to capture water.
Yeah, the water one. Actually, in Western Canada, I believe it was Alberta, there was about a 40-year period where it was you could have your own solar panels, but you could not sell back to the grid.
Yeah, which is bullshit.
But still
as opposed to Germany, which in the late 1970s decided that, you know what, we're going to take solar power seriously. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a loan program where if you can present us with a business case, the German government will guarantee this price per megawatt hour that you generate and sell to the grid.
Which is also not smart.
Well,
no, because they outprice
themselves. Guaranteeing it is not a great idea because they artificially set the bar. Yeah. But what ended up happening was a shit ton of farmers designed solar farms that were set 10 to 12 feet in the air and permitted it ended up driving innovation for designing equipment that could operate within these frames if they had if they were farming plants. But if they had, say, cattle, the cattle would just roam around and graze underneath because the solar panels don't interfere with the sunlight enough to prevent whatever the cow's eating from growing. And so shit tons of German farmers installed wind or solar farms and still were farmers. And they did that because the government said, we'll make sure that you are treated fairly selling this power back. So these farmers created business plans and got loans. You know, if it cost, say, 30,000 Deutschmarks to build it, the bank could say, it's going to take this many years at this price for you to pay this back. Here's the terms of your loan.
Yeah. There's a ton of people in Germany with houses who monetize their roof space like that. My dad's one of them. He is a guarantee for another 18 years, and I think he's raking in about $1,000 per month, just pure earnings. You know,
you pay it back within 10 years, but after 10 years, you're still producing energy. I have the same thing.
Nice system. But it's really bad if you're renting, because if you're renting, you don't have that opportunity, you know, because you don't have a roof. Right. Yeah, so basically, it's really disadvantageous for people who don't own property.
And here's the fun thing: did you not notice that, for example, who are the ones screaming loudest for the minimum wage increase in America at this moment? It's not the
people
poor.
Who don't have jobs.
No, it's not the poor, and it's not the middle class. It's the rich.
I don't mean to cut in here, but I
actually... What are you talking about?
Okay, one moment. First ramblings. I'm sorry you have to go, mate.
It's cool. Dinner just got here, and...
You're gonna get raked later.
Yeah, I know. Bring it on. Bring it on, Canada. I have an AR-15 ghost gun with an invincibility button.
Like a ghost gun. Is that like where you think you have a gun?
No, it's called the ghost gun because it makes you dead. It's a joke from it's a joke from Political Tunes. They did a satire about liberal gun control. I'll send it to you if you want to check it out. It's funny.
Yeah, sure. Hey, but bon appetit, and I hope to see you next week.
Yeah, I will be here. Later, guys. Nice seeing y'all.
Bye.
Yeah, buddy.
And now I can't remember what I wanted to. No, I interrupted you. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Sinclair.
No, you were saying that's why.
I don't remember what I was saying.
Okay, me neither. Sorry, but yeah, if someone
was saying that it's unfair to tenants who don't have like property, you know, that sort of law that they had in Germany, you know.
Oh, yes, and now I remember. And I said that the ones that are most pushing for minimum wages are the very wealthy.
Yeah. Oh, yes, and I asked you to explain that.
Okay, here goes. What happens when you increase minimum wage? When
cost of living increases.
Cost of living increases, and you have a huge inflation. Now, consider this. I am very wealthy. I use $1 million loan to buy material for $1 million to build something, or I buy machinery for $1 million.
Oh yeah, if you owe money, that's good. Inflation is brilliant if you owe money.
Inflation is brilliant because if we then have an inflation of only 10%, my million suddenly is only $1 million, where the rest of the world would have be at 1,100,000. For the same materials, I still bought for $1 million. Therewith, my value has increased by 100,000, and all I did was nothing.
All you did was advocate for an increase in the minimum wage.
And this is why most wealthy people are advocating for an increase of minimum wage. It's not the poor. Well, some of the poor are because they don't know any better, but it's most... And a lot of the wealthiest people are talking about, but this is not a problem. If we increase minimum wage, it's not a problem for companies. But every middle-class company owner, so every small business owner will tell you, if we have to raise our pay, I'm going to have to either fire people or close business because I cannot afford this.
Raise prices.
Well, but if you look at places where there's been legislated increases in the minimum wage to what they consider to be a living wage, Seattle and Southern California come to mind. It's negatively affected businesses.
Yeah. And there is an example where that isn't the case.
And then they also replace humans with machines in like fast food chains, for example.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the solution to this is to act to control inflation, not to artificially inflate wages.
Yep. And this is the problem. But who are the ones that are definitely in favor of minimum wages? The very wealthy, because they know that this is going to create inflation, and they know that it's going to decrease their debt.
I imagine it's popular amongst the uneducated poor as well.
Yeah, but they don't gain anything, because if I'm going to say, okay, instead of 10 euro, you're now going to get 15 euro.
Well, sure, they don't gain anything, but they believe that they do, so they support it.
They might actually be worse off.
Yeah, maybe. They will be worse off. The example I just gave you...
Although if inflation occurs at the same rate that the minimum wage increases, they'll be about the same off as they were when they started.
Actually, no, they will be off worse.
That's true.
No, they will be off worse, because this is also what we see. Because inflation is more than the increase in wage. So
pretty much
the real earning power of people in North America has remained relatively static, but the inflation has continued to climb. So I'm not making appreciably more than somebody a generation ago doing my job was making. But
your prices are a lot higher.
Well, that's not exactly unreasonable.
Yeah, it is actually.
Well, if you think about it, my parents paid $60,000 for a single-level 2-bedroom bungalow when I was 6 months old. They put in the personal effort without a bobcat to put a basement under it. That house is worth, last I checked, almost $400,000. I own a house that is it's actually slightly smaller than what my parents bought. It cost me almost 4 times as much.
Wow.
Yeah.
A generation later.
Yeah, there you have it. And that's inflation.
My mortgage was $222,000 when I first signed it. And I have gone out of my way to have things like accelerated biweekly payments. So I literally pay every 2 weeks, not every 15 days.
Mm-hmm.
And my last renewal cycle, I increased my payments by $30 a payment.
Well, so worth in wages for each hour of hard work has gone down.
Yeah,
worth in wages has gone down.
Let me give you a very specific example. So, St. Clair, you know I have a roofing ticket, right?
Yes.
Back in 1984, when the economy in Canada in general crashed, but particularly in Western Canada, roofers were one of the top 5 paid trades in Alberta. They were making approximately $30 an hour. When I got my journeyman's ticket, I had the wages had just got back to $30 an hour because of the 1984 crash. I got my journeyman's ticket in 2005. There was, when the crash happened in 1984, the wages of roofers and carpenters and scaffolders in general, those 3 trades specifically, dropped by at least half. There were journeyman roofers in the mid 80s and the late 80s working for $12 to $15 an hour.
So what you would need ideally is an increase in middle class immigration to your country, and something, or not necessarily that, but something that necessitates building many homes very quickly. That will drive up the
not necessarily, because maintenance is still an option as a roofer. I could go and re-roof somebody's house or business. I mean, those roofs do not persist. Generally speaking, do not persist beyond 25 to 30 years. I mean, the outlier, the one church in Ohio that had literally a sailcloth canvas and coal tar pitch roof that lasted for over 100. But I mean, that's incredibly unusual. And I mean, we're not talking about the sorts of roofs that you see in Germany, as an example, where they use slate, which, unless it's experiencing massive environmental shocks or some kind of catastrophic shock, it's
earthquakes.
Going to. Yeah, Germany is tectonically fairly sound. Teutonically sound, perhaps?
I like that.
They deal with a lot of slate and a lot of metal roof, which persists much longer. A metal roof, you can resurface that. So that cost is much lower than having to go and tear off all the shingles and put a bunch of new shingles on. I mean, slate and tile roofs can easily last 100 years if they're well maintained. So the solution is not to have an influx of immigration. I'm in favor of very, very controlled immigration, because
I understand that you are.
Honestly, I don't believe that I'm not unsure about how we need to build our economy by bringing in immigrants, when in Canada's case right now, we're struggling with high unemployment rates. We have people that need to work.
How do you increase the wages of roofers to what it was back in 1984?
They're going to start going up very drastically very soon because there are very few certified roofers.
Well, lucky you.
Supply and demand, of course.
Yeah. Scaffolding, which I now am a journeyman in. There's a lot of scaffolding work to be done, and it constantly needs to be done because all sorts of plants, whether it's fertilizer plants, oil plants, whatever, power plants too, I mean, they all require people to build temporary work platforms so that retards that want to do pipe fitting or electrical or whatever can get up to do their work safely. And there's ongoing maintenance. There's relatively little construction right now. But the problem is that the construction drives the economy of Western, well, particularly the prairie provinces. That's why I'm so virulently against the way that the carbon taxes were implemented in Canada. It's nothing but a naked tax grab. It doesn't serve to drive innovation or diversification. I can put up a scaffold for somebody who wants to have solar panels. If they want to build a solar farm, I can build a scaffold so electricians and welders can put together the solar farm. Mm-hmm. But that's not happening with the money that's being collected. I'm not sure where the money's going. There's been no clear statements about it. But Trudeau was insistent that if you don't have a carbon tax in place by 2017, you're going to have one implemented. And
I have a question.
These taxes disproportionately affect Alberta and Saskatchewan, which between them are about 20% of the GDP of Canada. You've got just over it's about 5.5 million people in those two provinces alone that are a fifth of the fucking GDP. Like, why are you punishing the shit out of them?
What are Canadian roofs made of, if not roof tiles, to be that short-lived? Tampons?
No, asphalt shingles, composite asphalt shingles, rubber shingles are actually gaining popularity because, why not take a bunch of old tires and recycle them? There's also the option. There are slate and metal, slate and tile roofs here. They're just not as common because they're much heavier, and we don't build in stone, which is really common throughout all of Europe. We build with wood, which there's different structural thresholds. So we also use a lot of wood shakes and wood shingles. So you see that more in countries that have lots and lots of wood. Germany's got they've got lots of forests, but they don't tend to have the types of trees that make good, long-lasting shingles.
Yeah, because we got mostly fir and stuff like that.
Yeah, cedar is almost always the preferred shingle.
Well, we have stone, and stone is a lot easier to work with. It's a little bit more difficult to make.
It lasts ridiculously long. It doesn't suffer the sorts of degradation that wood does.
Yep, we've got.
There's a reason that, like, I had a friend that he went to Germany to go backpacking and hostling as part of a European tour, and somebody asked him, like, why would you come to Germany? You're from Canada. It's you've got all of Canada to explore. And the guy, he turned and he pointed at a church on the corner. He's like, how old's that church? Oh, well, that was built in 13 something by Saint Boniface or something.
Okay, our country is not that old yet.
Yeah, like I come from a country that has yes, Canada's been settled for roughly 400 years, but it doesn't have the depth of history that Europe does, which we're seeing swept away by, guess what? Immigration.
St. Boniface died in the 8th century.
Shut up,
but it's kind of funny because I had this discussion with
Australia was the best, wasn't it? This house is really old. It's 50 years old.
Yeah, I had this discussion with an American last year. He was talking about how he lived in a city, and that city is almost 300 years old. And I'm like, we have trees in this city that are older.
Yeah, no shit.
300 years old. Oh wow, dude, the church. The rebuilt version of the great church in this city is already like almost 1,000 years old. And that's the rebuilt version.
The new church is almost 1,000 years old.
Yeah,
I understand why some Americans call this the old country.
Wasn't the Netherlands mostly pagan before that time?
Before Christianity? No, well, years ago it was mostly Christian, but if we go back 2,000 years, yes, it was mostly pagan.
Okay,
but
I have to imagine it was mostly pagan until the late 9th century, early 10th century. Is that right?
Yeah, roughly that.
Okay.
Roughly that.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry, I like to muse about history.
Yeah,
So
me
I had a
too.
question about the whole inflation shit. And what were the numbers like 10? If you raise it from 10 to 15, wouldn't that mean that the 15 eventually becomes like $7 in the 10 system or some shit like that?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I treat economics in the same way I treat marketing. It's a bunch of liquor and fucking guessing.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, I don't pretend to be, fantastically economically literate, but I do understand enough to say that diminishing the real buying power of a given unit of currency is more harmful than controlling the inflation.
Yeah.
Or controlling inflation is a better solution than mandating and legislating changes in wages. I mean,
if inflation happens naturally, doesn't wages also go more naturally?
And that's the reaction of the market.
Or not?
And that's your trust. The market system.
We're fucked, basically. We're fucked.
I'm not sure that there is actually a truly good modeling system for the market because
food-backed system.
I mean, honestly,
the earliest economies were backed by grain. Before they were backed by gold, they were backed by grain, and
then we moved on to salt and other sorts of important things.
No, we never moved on to salt. That's a myth.
Salt was always a commodity, but we didn't have a
we get the word
an economy based off it. Well, there were cases in which Roman soldiers were paid with salt.
Yes, but that's because
it was a valuable commodity.
Yes, but not because it had more value then.
It could be traded for other things that were of use, but that doesn't mean that the economy was backed by it. The Roman economy was backed by gold and by grain.
And by silver.
Roman women were salty. And Roman women were salty.
Roman women were salty. That's only in the West Roman Empire and only from, let's say, 200 on. That's basically when the collapse of the West Roman Empire started.
So apparently, and I'm not sure what Pulse Nigeria is on Twitter. I'm going to take a look. It's apparently a new Nigerian media publisher. But apparently, semen facials are the latest beauty trend in Nigeria. So guess what, St. Clair? You're going to have the most beautiful glowing skin of all of us.
Well, it does glow, and it is very soft.
But yeah.
No.
Anyway, I'm starting to get a little bit tired. We're close to 2 hours. So this is usually where I kind of stop the stream. I'd like to thank you all for coming. It was a really good stream once again. So, guys, do you want to plug yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You go first then.
No. I'm St. Clair. I'm going by Lieutenant for right now on YouTube. I might start making videos. I might not. I don't know. It depends on how much. Well, I want to say it depends on how much emotional support I get, but honestly, it just depends on whether or not I feel like it.
Well, okay. Marking, you are the biggest YouTuber here, I think, at the moment.
Yeah,
no, that's not true. I'm the biggest YouTuber
because I allow you to be.
Yeah, I haven't actually done content in some time because just simply I haven't had the time and I just haven't had the interest. It's gotten to the point where Medusa magazine, which was it was revealed to be a satire magazine, and they stopped doing it because they couldn't keep up the satire in the face of actual news. That is where I'm at. Like it's literally gotten to the point where I am unable to fathom the depths of insanity that both sides, in fact, are. I'm being a both sider.
No, I agree. I'm amazed at some of the bullshit going on within what we used to call the skeptic community. I think pre-stream we were talking about this when, for example, Cognitive and Liz are having a spat with each other, and I'm like, dudes, you don't have to agree with each other. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, just you go to separate sides of the play. Go to separate sides of the playpen. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Nobody cares whose shit stinks worse.
I had the same issue some time ago when on the con stream they were talking, nearly all stream they were talking about some personal drama between two YouTubers, and I'm like, I'm sorry. First off, I'm not affected. Second off, even if I were affected, it's personal.
Yep.
I don't get it. This whole drama bullshit. I don't like it. It's
a lot of people do like drama, so you know.
Yeah, I know, and it happens. It happens on all sides. And I like to be nice to.
Makeup channels might have little drama in them from time to time, you know.
Yeah, true that. No, but I like the idea of being aligned to certain channel. I'm aligned to Marking Bad. I'm aligned to Based Mama. I'm aligned to Alicia Clegg because we are all roughly in the same ballpark where we criticize and where we talk about.
I just like the fact that you've got guys like Alternative Hypothesis who refuse to actually discuss anything with black people whom they claim are intellectually inferior. That means you're an idiot that can't debate other idiots.
Well, I personally, I mean, I had a stream last Saturday, I think, about, I mean, there was a guy who made a nice post about the ethno-state, and it really was a good post. I had it linked, and I really wanted to talk about him because I don't believe in the ethno-state. But I also don't believe in multiculturalism. I don't believe in multi-ethnicity. We need a social, a cultural, cohesive state. Mm-hmm. But I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I need to know that I can have your back and you can have my back and we can trust each other.
Yeah, it's the state of mind that culture is important, but ethnicity is not analogous to culture. A person who was born and raised in West Africa can be given a Western education and be more intelligent than, well, not only most of the people in his country, but many people in European countries.
I love, for example, in this simple thing, if we look at Nigerians in America, 50% of them have a bachelor degree or higher.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but the problem is that then you get the ethno-statists crying, "Oh, hyper-selection."
Yeah, well, yeah, but no, because
what is hyper-selection?
It literally means that you're automatically selecting a group that is already an outlier group.
But at the same time, that's also bullshit.
College people who attend college are representative of their country intellectually, I would say. People who are college graduates.
The problem is that in America you can't really. But in America you can't really say that. And why can't you really say that in America? Because black people have a 300 SAT score advantage. But this doesn't go up for people from Nigeria because they aren't Americans. They are people from Nigeria coming to America to study.
And in many cases, the people who are successful are actually intelligent.
Yes.
And I think that's why you see people who are, let's say Nigerians, just use it as an example, if they are given a Western education and they do well, in many cases they are more intelligent than the native black American population.
Oh yeah, they're more intelligent than native white.
They're more intelligent than the Native American population in general. You know what I mean when I say Native American. Don't be pedantic.
No, I mean even the white ones.
Oh yeah, obviously. When I say Native American, I mean anybody who was born and raised in America and is an American citizen.
Okay.
I think what I've got on the screen is what we need to end with.
I don't know. What have you got on your screen? What do I see?
We need an Elmo state.
It's time for an Elmo state.
No, but I like it. Well, I'm going to broadcast it. It's going to stay. And I'm not going to do the whole discussion right now. I'm sorry. But yeah, I do believe that we need to go back to the cultural cohesive state.
When in Rome,
I know
the Romans, like we keep.
I would definitely love to talk about
the East Romans. Like the East Romans, because yes, the West Romans were a cultural cohesive state, but in the end phase they weren't, because socialism, it wasn't called socialism back then, but socialism and feminism did creep into the Western European countries.
I thought that the Western Roman Empire fell because they kept offering land to people who were not of their religion, not of their culture, and who didn't particularly care about them.
Mostly not of their culture.
It's not really multiculturalism so much as it is mercenary culture gone horribly mad.
Yeah, which is what's going on in Europe right now, where we get people in from different cultures and we give them land and we give them a house and we give them food and we give them voting rights and we give them all sorts of things that our domestic people don't even have, and it's changing our society in a negative way. But
I would definitely love to have a conversation with you about that.
I'm always game, because I really, and I hope to address this with as many people as possible. I want to bring back the idea of the cohesive cultural state.
Yeah,
because in all fairness, America was.
I'm totally fine with Sikhs that want to move to Canada and the UK. They assimilate well.
They assimilate well. I mean, yes,
in
okay.
Fact, the notion that like we have Sikh RCMP officers in Canada, people that they have asked for a religious exception to the uniform to accommodate their turbans, and their turbans are in the colors of red and blue as the rest of the uniform is. I have no problem with that. They're literally taking their pre-existing cultural state or their cultural norms, and they're adapting them to then fit what exists.
Other examples, Buddhists and Jains are almost always perfectly okay.
Yeah, but you know what? Going back to that whole thing about, Canada's inviting back ISIS terrorists, I don't want somebody from Ireland who is a convicted IRA member, who's convicted of terrorism. I don't want them in my country. I don't want Islamic terrorists. I don't want people from apparently Boko Haram is currently they're in a face-off with Christian militia groups. I don't want those Christian militia groups here either.
No, because they are not part of our culture. They have the same problem as the guys from Boko Haram. And this is why I have a problem with people advocating for the ethno-state. This is, funny enough, this is my main problem when I talk about liberalists with Sargon. I really hope to be able to talk to him about this as well. Because if we do stuff like this, then we're still going to be two sides of the same coin. We need to step off this fucking coin. The ethnocentrist way of thinking is bad, but the multi-ethno state is also bad. We need to let go of both of this. We need to go back to one culture. America was a melting pot. By pointing out all the individual differences, what you are doing is you're destroying the melting pot. And this is true for America. This is true for the West Roman Empire. And everyone seems to think that the West Roman Empire is a failed state, so it's a bad example of cultural cohesive state. But they forgot that there's an East Roman Empire that lasted well into the 1400s. And it was a cultural cohesive state with multiple ethnicities. But it was cultural cohesive. And it was successful for more than 1,000 years. Anyway, before we start talking all over it, this is something I really feel strongly about. So if you know other YouTubers that want to talk about it, if you want to talk about it, by all means, come to me. This is something I have looked into, and I don't know everything.
I'm thinking of the wars between the Danes and Saxons in the later 9th century.
Yeah.
During the time when the Dane law was established, these were two very different peoples who despised each other based on differences of culture and religion.
But they were ethnically the same.
They were ethnically the same. That's right.
So ethnicity isn't a marker. People keep pushing ethnicity as a marker. Ethnicity is not a marker. We need to move away from it. Because it will always bring us down. It's identity politics in the worst way possible. Well, yes, Alicia, you're right. And when you have certain cultures coming together in the beginning, they always clash. But those clashes either grow like an oil spill on the water, or they are the end of a negative and the start of a new way. You can still have your own culture. It's okay to have your own culture within a culture, as long as all cultures abide by the same overarching culture and the rule of law.
Now that I think about it, I find it quite interesting that the dynasty that eventually conquered England and won it, the dynasty of William the Bastard, was a dynasty that was originally founded by Rollo, who became the first Count of Rouen. And what this dynasty was this was a dynasty and a people who were originally Danish and had perfectly, well, I guess you could say they perfectly mixed with the French culture. And I find that interesting that the people who eventually conquered England after 200 years of war were they were sort of half Frankish and half Danish, and it had perfectly melded together.
Yeah, you know what a Frank is genetically. You know what a Frank is.
It's lips, hooves, and assholes, isn't it?
It depends on what you mean. Do you mean Sicilian? There's Sicilian. There is Occitan. And there's Burgundian.
No, they're Germanic. All Franks are Germanic.
I know that. And
do you know what a sex is?
Germanic.
Yep.
Or North Germanic.
Germanic.
Saxony would have been. Well, yeah. Well, all of those peoples are descended from people who originally came from Jutland.
Nearly all of Europe. Europe is Germanic.
Yes.
So ethnically speaking, we're all the same. Well,
almost all barbarian tribes who became, well, I say barbarian, almost all Germanic tribes who became Christian throughout the first millennium, from the Marcomanni onward to the Franks and the Burgundians and the Vandals, and even further onward, the Danes and other Norsemen.
The Rus,
the Rus, the Normans, they all came from the area that we now know today as Denmark, as far back as we know.
Yeah, and probably a little bit higher as well, though. But
maybe. I have to wonder if there were people at the time who realized this, who realized that Woden and Odin are the same.
Religiously, yes, they did.
I don't know. I'm thinking random thoughts right now, and I'm having interesting.
They did. Because, for example, if you look at Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Denmark, large swaths of the Germanic states now, they all believed in either Odin or Woden,
which were essentially variations on the same god.
Which were the same god.
Isn't
and people recognize this.
And the other version of Asatru, basically.
Sorry?
There's this thing called the Asatru these days. They believe they also
Asatru.
Yeah.
Asatru are basically they believe in the Norse gods, and they are the Asir, and because they are Asatru, they are true followers of the Asir.
John, that's right. The Normans didn't leave nearly as much of a mark on Britain as later dynasties like the Plantagenets did. But the Plantagenets were Frankish, and so they were Germanic, and so that still kind of proves my point.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. Great Britain is Germanic. France is Germanic. Everything from France towards Finland is Germanic. Finland isn't Germanic, by the way. Russia isn't Germanic. Poland isn't Germanic. But if we look at Sweden, Norway, Denmark, that's Germanic again. But yeah, no, I'm going to start a whole new conversation. I need to stop. I need to.
So what you're saying is Caucasian people aren't white.
Okay, so which Caucasian person are we talking about? Are we talking about Germanic? Are we talking about?
I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. People from the Baltic states are not Germanic. That was the joke.
Yeah, there you have it.
I was using Germanic as a synonym for the word for the white race.
But that's the whole problem with the ethno-state. When people talk about the ethno-state, they always think that they know what they're talking about. And the worst part is, if we look at that
stream, man.
Yeah, but if we look at America now, which are the most destabilizing factors in America now? There is Black Lives Matter, most members are white, and there's Antifa, most members are white. I'm sorry, but the ethno-state doesn't work. Because if it didn't, there wouldn't be an Antifa.
And I'm always the one to point out that fascism and socialism are both, quote, white, unquote, ideologies.
Oh yeah, though, yeah.
They're both Hegelian German ideologies.
They are Marxist, definitely Marxist.
They're both Hegelian. I wouldn't call fascism by itself Marxist, but Marxism and fascism both have the same ideological father, which is Hegelianism.
Fascism has Marx as father too.
Well, fair enough. There's an intricate web that begins with Hegel. Actually, begins earlier than Hegel, but Hegel is the one who popularized it.
Yes, but Marx is the one who made it big.
That's true.
Really made it big.
Fair enough.
If we look at fascism, because a lot of people seem to think fascism and socialism and Marxism have nothing to do with each other, they forget that one of the primary, inspirators of Giovanni, what was his back name again? Giovanni. Oh, I have to Google this real fast. Sorry. I know it. It's a really silly name. Gentile. I didn't even have to Google it. I found it in my heart. Giovanni Gentile is the father of the concept of fascism, and he has based it heavily on Marxism.
His Wikipedia page, the very first sentence refers to him as a neo-Hegelian idealist.
Oh, I know. Because Marx is also an Hegelian.
Fair enough.
But if you read a little bit further, you will probably also read how he was influenced by Marx.
I like how his school of thought. I've never heard of him before now, but I like how the school of thought that he created is actually referred to as actualism. Like I imagine I imagine it's like a philosophy. I can't speak.
Philosophical.
Philosophy based on the statement by the statement that Neil deGrasse Tyson is really known for, which is, well, actually, it's just that sort of arrogant kind of know-it-all. Well, actually, I don't know. It just made me laugh.
Anyway, guys, I'm going to start all over again. I'm really crap at this today. Yep. I am going to close it off. I want to thank everyone in the stream because people are leaving already. But I want to thank everyone in the stream for coming. And yes, we can talk about it.
Because I'm boring.
It's because I'm boring. You're not. You're really not, because I really want to go into it. But I also have to stop because it's almost 2 o'clock. Midnight, 2 o'clock. So, and it's my own fault. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Sleep well, Crusader. I love it when you're here, mate. I really do. We have to meet up again. We really do. Anyway, see you all very much. Thank you for enjoying the stream. Marking, thank you for coming, mate. It's a long time it's the first time you were on this stream, by the way. I had you on Sequitur stream, but I never had you here.
I know I've been on other streams with you.
Yeah. You've been on Sequitur. I used to run the Sequitur stream for a while, but yeah, I started to do it here. I'd like to have you back. It was fun to have you. And once again, thank you very much for coming, St. Clair. I really love it when you're here, mate.
Well, thank you. I always love talking to you.
Well, that's good. That's great. Good feeling. And thank you, Axel, Real Raven. Great to have you here again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I really love it when you're here. It's too bad you're a bit quiet now, but yeah, you're busy probably. Smirkus, thank you for coming again.
Yep. Always, man.
Yeah, I'm going to see you next week, right?
Probably.
Come on, you got to be there.
Hey, you always say it's not an obligation.
Let's face it, Smirkus is your Black Pete. Smirkus is your Black Pete.
He's way more than that. He's way more than that.
He's White Pete.
I'm the silent observer that occasionally says something.
Yeah, but listen, mate, and I've said this before, you don't talk a lot, but when you say something, it's usually very smart.
Or just asking for clarification.
Which, again, can be considered...
Asking for saint clarification.
Oh, yeah, you know it.
Okay, I'm going to drop the broadcast. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for listening, and see you.